But thank you everyone for coming out on such a challenging day. And you know, I was talking to Craig, that's our property owner here and our applicant. That's Craig and Laura Roshan, who are both here today. Very important, get a monument plaque, whatever we want to call this, to happen. So without them, it would never have happened, right? Never. So thank you, Craig and Laura. My name is Chuck Sameka. I'm a commissioner with the Nevada County Landmarks Commission of the Board of Supervisors, and it's our goal, of course, to bring cultural history alive for our citizens. And in these challenging times, it's very, very important to do it with tactfulness and great research. And I am so very proud to be part of the commission, because the people I work with, the 10 commissioners, are dedicated to that. And we're trying to evolve with the times and do the best possible job we can. We have several commissioners here today that I wanted to thank for coming. I didn't think they would, but they did. So thank you very much. We also have 2 members of the Board of Supervisors here today, and I didn't know if they were coming, but thank you for coming. That's Sue and Hardy Bullock. All the way from Truckee, Hardy came with his mom, I believe, today.
Yeah, Robin.
Yes. And Sue Hook is our supervisor for District 4. This is District 4, part of it. And I guess it's been part of District 4 since 1851, when this mine was here, you might say. So it's appropriate that we dedicate this. And I have a few notes so I don't forget anybody. So I also wanted to thank Jeff Thornsby and Sarah Hollyhead. Those are 2 analysts that work for the Board of Supervisors. Without them, these plaques, which is one of many, would not be possible, because they assist us with our research, maybe cleaning it up and making it presentable for final approval with the Board of Supervisors. So we work hand in hand as a team, the commission, the analysts, and the supervisors. A special thanks again to Craig and Laura. And I want to bring up something about the installation of this plaque. Not only would it not be here without Craig Roshan's ideas, you see this granite boulder. It didn't walk over here. Well, actually, it was helped over here with Craig's tractor. And I kept on telling Craig, call me when you're ready to do this, because I don't want to find you under your tractor with that boulder on top of you. Of course, he didn't call me, but somehow the boulder made it up here. And it wasn't an easy go either. He had to cut down a tree down there someplace. By the way, this boulder was picked out with a team effort. Craig, myself, Torben Erickson, and our, I would call him stone mason extraordinaire, Stephen Fry, who's been with us from day one, helping us on so many placement of these plaques. He's not here today. Something must have come up. Oh, there you go. There's Steve Fry's up there. Thank you, Steve. This is the first time I've saw it, and it's all completed. It's all grouted, and it looks great. And I know you're proud of that, and you should be. There's another person that I'd like to mention, and that's Chasey Pepper. I don't believe she's here today, but is she here today? Okay. Chasey Pepper is the president or director, I'm not sure of the proper title, of a brand new organization, you might say. I think it formed in the early part of 2020. It's called Color Me Human, and it's a diversity group. In particular, as a 501c3, they're set aside their energies to further bring about the culture of the minority communities of Nevada County. And the Board of Supervisors actually thought it would be beneficial for Linda Jack and myself to bring the material and research that we did before her committee to see if there was any nuances. We wanted to make sure it was accurate and appropriate in the way it was presented, the text. And Chasey said, all good, Very good. We appreciate the work you've done. So I want to thank her for taking the time to review our work of the group called Color Me Human. Linda Jack is here somewhere today. Do you think I should say anything else about Color Me Human? Is that I'm pretty much cover it? Okay. I wanted to read to you the first three resolutions of the Board of Supervisors that in particular talk about this dedicated plaque. This plaque is placed here for the following reasons: safeguarding Nevada County's heritage as embodied and reflected in the Kentucky Ridge Mine site, located at this address, representing its influence on Nevada County's cultural and social history, and commemorating the people who brought had worked there and became part of our early communities. Number two, encouraging public knowledge, understanding, and appreciation of Nevada County history as reflected in its heritage, and fostering a civil neighborhood pride and sense of identity based upon the recognition and use of cultural resources. I wanted to mention that by placing this plaque here today, we remember that California entered the Union as a free state. But it was difficult during those first 10 years of statehood, let's say from 1850 to 1860, prior to the Civil War, because not all blacks that came to this community were free, though many were. Some were brought here as enslaved people. In particular, this plaque dedicates this site to those enslaved people. It is thought that there were between 35 and 40 enslaved people brought here from the southern states. I wanted to mention that this is in fact a success story and a story of human accomplishment. These black people, after this mine closed, went into the community, become very respected people with many accomplishments. I'm going to go ahead and read now what the plaque actually states. During the gold rush days, Nevada County had a significant black population. Most were free, but even though California had entered the Union as a free state, some were enslaved before the Civil War. From 1851 through 1852, the Kentucky Ridge Mine was the largest enterprise in California operated by slave labor. Gold was first discovered on this property in early 1851. By October of 1851, Colonel William F. English brought with him from Florida and South Carolina about 40 slaves to operate the gold mine. He was one of over a dozen slave owners in Nevada County. The mine failed after English died in a gun accident on August 27, 1852, and the black mine workers gradually moved into the towns. One of them, Isaac Sanks, the husband of Chasey, one of these slaves, became a religious leader, businessman, and political figure who helped gain blacks the right to serve on juries and the right to vote by 1870. He died at his home in Grass Valley on May 9, 1894. Landmark registered by Nevada County on June 22, 2021, and the plaque is dedicated by the Nevada County Historical Landmarks Commission. So many people to thank. I wanted to thank Linda Jack in particular. She is a member of the Nevada County, not Landmarks Commission, but the Nevada County Historical Society. And a lot of us are both members of the commission and members of the Historical Society. The Historical Society has been with us for so many years doing wonderful things. And in recent years, or at least since I've been with the commission, we have been a team working on projects together, which I think is one grand thing. Without Linda's excellent research, this plaque would not have been possible. She has found early first histories involving this mine site, which are invaluable to the historic record. And I want to thank you, Linda, for really helping me through this process. And it's been a really great learning experience, I would say, not only for me, but for the commissioners as well. I wanted to mention that when we first conceived of this plaque, I went to Linda and I said, we're going to do this. We're thinking of doing this. And she first of all encouraged me, yeah, let's do this, because it's timing is what we need, is right. And the challenges weren't as straightforward as some of the other plaques, as I mentioned earlier. So, but we got it done, and that's what was important. Just want to take a moment to have you reflect on it. Try to think back to 1851, what it might have been like for the enslaved people to live and work at this location. It wasn't just right in this vicinity. This was a large piece of ground that today covers several property owners' parcels. Craig is one corner of that parcel, and he has many historic features on this site. This will be an ongoing project. We've contacted some of our local archaeologists. Chris Ward is here today. I want to thank Chris for coming wherever he might be. He's over there someplace. And he is going to help, hopefully in the future, to develop where the actual living quarters were for the enslaved people, as well as the mine mill site, which was called a chili mill. It was operated by flumed water that came from, we believe, Deer Creek, and turned a water wheel and moved some of the heavy granite stones that crushed the ore that the enslaved people brought down to the mill site near the water source. The actual mine's way up in that ridge line right there. That ridge line you see going across that you drove over and down to this location is the Kentucky Ridge. In that side of that mountain right up there on another property's parcel is the original entry into the mine. In later years, near the turn of the century, they built a second entry to gain access when more mining techniques had been developed that would make it more profitable. But in the early days, this was considered a fairly crude operation. Imagine the enslaved people leaving that mine with maybe push carts, wheelbarrows, bringing the ore down physically, and the amount of energy and the hard work and the trauma to their bodies that must have been. Day in and day out, and then returning to their homes, which were, we assume, wooden structures near the top of the ridge from some of the early statements that we found in our newspapers. Those sites need to be investigated and determined where those living quarters actually were located. But we believe it was somewhere on Kentucky Ridge itself. With that in mind, I wanted to invite Linda Jack to say a few words about her part of the research and give you maybe even a real clearer picture of what it was here at the Kentucky Ridge Mine and how important these early enslaved people were to our community.
I was just telling Chuck that this is auspicious timing. It was 170 years ago today that the Nevada Journal announced in a little report that Colonel William F. English had opened a mill up here on Kentucky Ridge. So we didn't plan it, but that's the way it worked out. About a week ago, a friend of mine who's a very social justice minded person took me back by saying that she was quite surprised that I would be associated with this site. And although it, as I said, took me back, and it wasn't in the form of a question, but I decided it was a good question. Why am I happy and pleased and satisfied to be associated with this site? And I think her question was in the context that it's a contentious period of our history, how we remember or don't remember slavery and all of its manifestations is a really contentious issue. Witness the critical race theory controversies in schools. So what I would say to that question, if she had asked me a question, is that it's really important that we not misremember, or that we don't want to remember the good and bad parts of our history. And as Chuck said, this place has mixed messages for us. Colonel English started this enterprise not on a lark, but as part of a real movement at the time that Southerners believed that their slave-based economy needed to expand to survive into Cuba, into South and Central America, and all the way across this country to the Pacific, where they envisioned China being a big new market for slave-based cotton. So his idea was as part of a theme, and there were many other so-called California slave colonies that were envisioned by Southerners to come and blossom here in the West. Not only in California, but Texas had already fulfilled their vision, but in New Mexico and Arizona and Colorado. So one important theme of this place is that it was part of this much larger history that we pretty much neglect in our schools, at least when I was in school, and probably still today. The really positive side of this place is what Chuck hinted at, that the people that came here when English died were free a full decade or more ahead of their family and friends who'd been left behind. They walked off the site. Some actually stayed up here in mind. One, Robert Shopper, for decades, and is Chris probably buried up here somewhere, but we don't know where. But most moved down into Grass Valley. And by 1870, they were property owners. They had lots and property on which they built houses on Townsend and Pleasant and Mill Street, on Church Street, on what's now Linden Street. And they had businesses. They were caterers and millwrights and all sorts of other occupations. And they made a life. And they made it way ahead of when they would have been able to make it had they been in the South. So that's the part of the story that I like the best, but we should remember the other part. And just one more thing, in 1870, Isaac Sanks, whom Chuck mentioned, and his brother-in-law, Joseph Thomas, took a journey back to Florida, where they came from, enslaved. And there they visited their family who'd been left behind. Many of their siblings and their mother and other family members had been left behind. And one thing that really touched me was one of their brothers, who was named Lim, during their absence had family of his own. And he named one of his sons Joseph and one of his daughters Chasey, after his missing siblings, right? Chokes me up. So I would love to have been a fly on the wall when they had that reunion. And I would have loved to have known what Isaac and Thomas, or Joseph, had to say about their life here, but we'll never probably know that. So I think all in all, it's important that we're doing this, and working with the Landmarks Commission has been just a pleasure always. So thank you to them, and thanks to all of you for coming. And Craig and Laura, of course. Thank you.
So what, 3 or 4 years ago, Linda Jack comes by with an archaeologist, Mark, and they told us about the history of this site. I knew the Kentucky Ridge Mine was up there. I had cleared the brush for the neighbor to get access to the opening that's still there, which had sloughed in. The opening right now is about this big, and it's just wet and muddy. At some point, I want to create a ROV, remotely operated vehicle, drive it in there just to see where it opens back up into the main tunnel. The interesting part of that is our neighbor, who is is deceased now, Virginia Davis, mostly blind, 4 feet 11 inches tall, got together with the existing owner of the mine 40 years ago. And they went into the mine and packed the engine and ore cars and the equipment in the mine with grease. So apparently there's still all kinds of stuff in there. So that makes it interesting archaeologically to maybe get that portal opened up and investigate the extent of the mine. There's a project. So after the conversation, I was, kind of walked around with a different eye and looking at perhaps the chili mill site, or down the hill just above Deer Creek Falls is a foundation that Chuck and I went to, and it was clearly something that they would process the ore with, because the overburden would just go down into the creek, like they did everywhere. And right here, just on the other side of this large tree, is another foundation. There was a building there for some reason. And this wheel and shaft were just to the right of it, where our garden is right now. So, and then another neighbor just down the hill this way has 2 more big drive wheels on her property. So the stuff is just spread out all over the place. I did, when I was cleaning up the neighbor's property that had burned in the Lobo fire, it missed our house by about 70 feet. And in the process of cleaning that up, I came across these plates and spikes, rail spikes, from when they had tracks going into the mine. There's a whole bucket of them still, of the spikes. So, and the other artifacts are from when I was living up on Chalk Bluff above You Bet and Red Dog. Dave and Artis Comstock were my neighbors for 20 years. And it was a great experience listening to him relate the history of Nevada County, the books that he wrote. So really looking forward, going, in the future, of getting an archaeologist out here and working with them to discover more of what's going on here.